Hey guys, it's Allie. Back with Awakening with Allie. Another amazing guest tonight on my show. So excited. We were actually chatting before we came on about mom life because we're both mothers of little ones, and we both had quite the evening trying to get our kids to bed and go through all the things. So we are recording late on November 2nd. I'm not sure when this will air, but just to give everybody a little background, we were joking about embracing the chaos and how you kind of have to be sometimes the eye of the storm and be in the mess and understand that sometimes that's how it is. You can't always be rainbows and unicorns. And, the reason I share that is because I have a lot of moms that listen and
Mm.
women that want to be moms. And it's like, it's okay. This is just real life and how it is. And um, we have to just go with the flow in order to be conscious in the journey, right? And to realize, like, okay, they are children and are figuring things out. And we, of course, have certain expectations and things that we, of course, wanted to be on this show, almost an hour ago. But, these things happen. So I wanted to introduce you guys. I have, hopefully, I don't pronounce her name wrong. I'm saying it three times tonight, guys, before I got on with her. Janaki, who
Yes.
is all right. Janaki, who is an agent of change in the Alchemist of Well-Being. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about her before we get into this show. So she grew up in a yoga family and was fed a lot of consciousness unconsciously. She witnessed her parents many times either fist fighting or meditating, experiencing conflict in her family. She got labeled many things such as messy, slow. One thing she was often called was a good girl. So she tried to live up to the image of being a good girl while suppressing her expression and hiding her depression behind her smile. She hid behind the mask of the persona of what she thought others wanted her to be, forgetting who she was so she could remember who she really is. Now she's agreed for her big play, Powerful Live Love Aligns with You, and has taken off the mask and shows up powerfully in her true, raw, authentic expression of who she is. She has mastered so many of her perceived weaknesses and turned them into her great strengths and loves helping others do the same. Janaki is an all spark for a new start, and she speaks the language of love, which speaks to the hearts of many. She has many certifications in yoga, coaching, art of sacred language, both body and spoken, NLP master practitioner, hypnosis, quantum time techniques. So let's go on with her certifications. We're going to get into all of this, guys. We start to have our conversation, but she's very passionate about supporting people in reclaiming and who they are and remembering how to come back home to themselves. So, Janaki, welcome to Awakening with Allie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, it's fun to hear my bio out loud. I go, oh, wow. And remembering where I've been in my journey and being grateful for all the things that I have experienced because that's who have brought me where I am now.
Yeah, so well said. So I want to start with before we kind of get into all the things with your family and consciousness and all that. Let's start with, since this is Awakening with Ali, I always tell everyone, tell me about your awakening. Where did that begin? What did that look like for you? Because from doing this show now since February of 2022, I have just had the most powerful conversation with people, and their awakenings have all been so different. So I'm always fascinated to hear everyone's story. So why don't you start there?
Yes, I have a few aha moments that are very pivotal moments. So when I was around 6 years old, I remember looking at the stars with my dad, and we would search for UFOs. And I felt at a very young age that I was from the stars. I didn't belong here on this planet. And so I would look at the stars and say, I want to go home. And so at a very young age, I made an agreement, a conscious agreement with myself that I was very aware of this agreement. I said, I'm going to sleep right now. And when the world is ready, I will wake up. So after my first body electronics, are you familiar with body electronics? So it's holding points in your endocrine system. It's a rebirthing process, going back through the birth canal. And when you're holding points, you are midwives for God sovereign beings, and you get to see the physiology of people shift and change. So after my first session, and I had my first remembrance of me, I go, oh, I've had it backwards. I wake up and then the world wakes up with me. Because I kept waiting for the world to change, waiting for things to happen. And so I've had dreams. Like I even had a dream. This I'm just gonna go there because this is what I'm hearing in me to share. I haven't shared with too many people. I had a dream. I still don't know to this day if it was a dream or if it was where I was. It was after my second body electronic session, and I kept having this dream where I was being abducted. And then all of a sudden, like I was sitting on the couch, physically sitting on the couch. My husband was working, and then I just passed out. Like I didn't even know I was sleeping. I just passed out. And I had that dream again of me being abducted. And this time, instead of resisting it, I decided to go with it. And all of a sudden, I'm in this room, and it's almost like this, almost like a kind of like a head shop type of thing, except for there's these Fabergé eggs and all these very tall beings. They're like 7, 8 feet tall, maybe taller. They're really tall. And there's all these little Fabergé eggs, and each Fabergé egg was a different type of earth. And one came up to me and says, "You choose a new earth." And I said, "What do you mean?" "I like the earth we have." "Well, that earth no longer exists. You choose a new earth." And so I go, "Oh, okay." And all of a sudden I remember this in my dream of throwing it up, burst, and then I just woke up. And I was like, what just happened? Like it felt so real. So to this day, I'm like, whoa, what happened? And so what that has showed me is we get to choose. There's no more waiting for things to decide outside of us, that we are the ones. And the way we change our planet is not in the outer world, it's in our inner world.
Mm-hmm.
And focusing on what's within. And so that's how I guide my yoga nidra journeys as well, is what is currently acting in my consciousness. That's what we're focused on. And then whoever is called to come, they receive exactly what they require to receive.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
a
that's
message,
beautiful.
yes, of their higher self. So that was one of them. And I actually wrote a song called "I Wake Up in Me." I wrote it 14 years ago. And in 2022, I finally released the song. And it's been my journey, because as I've been waking up in me in new ways, because it's my husband describes me as an onion, and we all are onions. And I used to think it was peeling the onion to get to the center. It's about enjoyment of every layer coming off and discovering that new layer of ourself. Because it's not like a one and done. It's
peeling back the layers. Right.
peeling back the layers. And that's also what my yoga nidra journeys offers, peeling back those layers that sometimes people may not want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I am one, I get this a lot. People are like, whoa, you're deep. So I'm like, I go there. I go there because, first of all, we're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us are ready. And so that was one of a big aha of just having that memory of, oh, I've been doing it backwards. And about a year ago, I wrote a poem, and I have a few poems, and I call them activation poems because they activate something so deeply in me, and it's like calling me forward in my next level. And it was talking about stop waiting. The kingdom of heaven is already inside you. And so also I tend to do things backwards. So in 2020, right before COVID happened, I go, oh, my why is so I be and enjoy my family. And I was working like a worker bee, work. And my husband would call me the busy bee. And so he'll check in and he'll go, are you being queen bee or busy bee? And he actually helped plant the seed, and I've been cultivating my seed of growing. He said, you're most powerful in your being self rather than your doing self. Because I've done my chakra series for almost 10 years now, and I would do. What else can I do? What else can I give to add my value? And he says, less is more. Focus on who you're being. That's who you are, not what you do. And I
Right.
go, oh.
I totally relate to that because, I became a certified breathwork facilitator, and I have seen so much in, like, we learned in with our mentorships and with studying the body and the way our parasympathetic nervous system is and all of that. And it's like when you can just be and be in the being and not be in the doing, which actually is more of a trauma response and a trigger
Mm,
response of like, I have to do, I have to do. Why am I not doing something? I can't sit still. That's all trauma response, right? It's like you go into the fight or flight, you're triggered because you feel like you need to do more, like you were just saying. What else can I add? What else can I give? What else? And it's like, no, just be in the being, because that's where your energy lies. That's where like you lie. Like that's like you just said, like that's your power, that's your gift. And when you can be in the being and less in the doing, things start to shift. And I also have had, those moments of those ahas and, those epiphanies of like, oh, that's actually true. Like when I start getting myself crazy and I'm jumping on emails and I'm sending a million text messages, texting with this, but all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I just create all this chaotic energy. But if I'm just like in it and just doing all I'm doing and just feeling into it and like knowing what I'm creating and trusting and being in it, all of a sudden, like, come on, it's like, oh, this happened. And I'm like, oh, wait, how did that happen? And then you start to realize like it continues to happen. And you're like, oh, and then it makes no sense to me, like being a breathwork facilitator, because it's like, yes, the mind is so powerful, but the body is what actually does it, moves it, obviously, same with yoga. And so it's like once you're embodied in it and the body is now doing it, moving it, and essentially alchemizing it, it's like,
mm.
oh, that's where the gold is. So I totally
Yes.
relate to what you're saying, and it makes so much sense. I love that you said that about, the being and not the doing, because I've been reminding myself even of this over and over and over again when I want to jump into that busy, busy, busy. And it's like, no, that actually doesn't work. It's actually like we've been programmed to do and like burn out. And then we wonder why we burn out. And then it's like, oh, we need a vacation. And then you burn out again. You start the vicious cycle all over again. It's like, how come you don't just let yourself be? And then when you need to like step into something, you step into it. So yeah, I love that you bring that up.
And this also takes this is what I've really, so I have my women's retreat coming up soon. So it's called forward so many things within me, because my mission statement for that is calling forward women who are ready to unmask themselves, who have been hiding behind the persona of who they think others want them to be, now ready for showing up powerfully for who you're meant to be and your full authentic expression of you, and allow your soul to shine through. And this is through my journey of where because as in my bio, I was labeled the good girl for holding back my expression. And just recently I wrote something of, there's a difference of kind and nice. And I'm committed to being kind. You can be kind and still be perceived as mean because you're calling forward the thought form and the illusion. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're nice, you're in agreement with the illusion. And this is where people pleasing begins.
Yeah, so true.
So
Yeah, so
that's
I think
that's
it's such a program that people pleasing. It's like I have to show up this way. I have to, you said, be the quote unquote good girl. And I know you get this because you're conscious parent and you don't have three little ones, as we were talking about before we got on recording. But like same with me, like even when I'm trying to explain things to Emily and Arlie, I try really hard to be conscious and not constantly use good and like explain other words and say to them like, no, you're good because you're you and who you are, and you're a wonderful girl. What's happening right now is not a good situation, and we need to work through this and try to have them understand like it's not them, it's what's happening, it's the
mhm.
decision, it's the situation. But it's hard, right? Because we are all programmed like, be a good girl. I mean, I've had to correct my own parents and my mother-in-law and father-in-law when, they're like, oh, good girl. And I'm like, and you don't want to like be rude, right? Because they mean it in the most loving ways possible. But you're like, yeah, but I don't want them to
Yeah,
say,
that used to be a
knows it's consciousness of it. Yeah.
That used to be a huge trigger, the word
Hmm.
good girl. I would cringe because it was my agreement, because everything I truly believe that we have our soul contract and we have our agreement. Everything that happens in our life, it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, for our growth, for our expansion. And we have agreed, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we've agreed to have these experiences, to have you play this role so I can experience this.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
and that's why when I do a deep-seated forgiveness, and I was just sharing with someone earlier about the cord cutting experience, instead of cutting the cord, embracing them as you, because we all are one,
Hmm.
and
For sure.
breathing them into you versus cutting the cord and creating separation, because there really is no separation. That's the idea of.
Right.
And so that's been like, especially we're here for our humanity and having a human experience, because I came in with a lot of, like I said, spirituality, learned to meditate at a very young age. Yoga was embedded in my bringing up. It was just kind of like my mom raised us, where truth is one, paths are many. And so she raised us with a lot of diversity and religion, and even the way like the like we lived in a middle class kind of like mixed, a mosh posh, and she wanted us to experience a lot of diversity. So
Mm.
and also lots of service work. We were raised with lots of um feeding the homeless and going to the old folks home and taking care of them. So there was a lot of diversity. When it came time to feeling our feelings, there was judgment. And so I was that little girl who went and hid in the corner. So when conflict showed up, I had one of my aha moments was with one of my facilitators, and we were in a conscious circle and discuss. And she goes, "What are you here for?" And I'm like, "I'm here for my peace and my love." And she goes, "How do you feel about conflict?" And I go, "Oh, no, 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 no." And she goes, "How are you going to be here for peace and love if you've yet to love conflict? And what does conflict turn into?" I go, "Oh, it's unity. That's what I'm here for, is integrating unity." And what I found out recently, it's a unity of the Holy Trinity, of the Divine Mother, Divine Father, and our infant, of our infinite child, the infant child. So of connecting and acknowledging. Children love to be acknowledged. So our inner child of our feelings love to be acknowledged. So as soon as we acknowledge what we truly are feeling versus everything's all good, I should love what I'm feeling. I used to say everything happens for a reason. That is true. But for my feeling world, I wasn't meeting me where I was.
Right.
And
Right. So
the first
actually being able to allow that to come through and see it for what it is and then move through it. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So my first aha moment of that, because I had that a lot of like, it's all good, everything happens for a
Totally.
reason.
Totally. Yeah. I think,
Oh, don't in my bubble's pure, no negative. Like it was such a
like that's,
blindfold.
yeah, I feel like that's for a lot of people I've talked to, like in the spiritual space. Like I feel like that's like where everybody kind of starts. 'Cause that's what you think it is, and it's like you're like, oh, this is my bubble, and oh, peace and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, your bubble gets burst, and you're like going so deep in your layers, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like you go so deep, and everything gets so dark, and you're like, what happened to my bubble of peace? What happened to this? What happened to that? And it's like, no, man, if you're gonna level up, it's like gonna come at you in waves, and it's like, oh my gosh, here comes another layer. So yeah.
Yes, yes. My husband, here was another aha pivot in my he's definitely one who has planted many seeds. He takes my complexity and brings it in simple, direct form.
Yeah.
Where I hear, he goes, I'm speaking your words. He tells me that. And one time we were having an argument, and he was saying, "Oh, you seeing lack?" And I said, "Oh, if you see lack in me, you spot it, you got it." We were pointing fingers back and forth,
Mhm.
and not owning of our own, what our feelings are. And so I go downstairs and I start facilitating me out loud and I go, okay, am I owning Alex? No, oops. And not an owning of like, oh, he belongs to me, of he is me. He's showing me a new layer. If I'm being triggered, because that's what I got in 2020 is I was triggered so much by the mask. So I went deeper into this. I go, what is this? And for me, it was holding back expression because I did that so much.
A lot of people were triggered by that.
Yes. And so I found out my triggers are the shadows of myself that I've yet to acknowledge or even be aware of. And those triggers have now come up to be integrated because we are both light and dark.
Yes. Yeah.
We aren't just light. We are both light and dark integrated as one. And so it comes up to light because that's what we really are, is light.
Right. We have to live in the dark in order for that to happen.
Exactly. And so I was like pointing fingers back and forth, and then I go, okay, so what is it he is showing me in myself that I'm now ready to see, because obviously it's triggering me. And so I was like, I'm texting him, I go, I'm feeling depressed. So I know the opposite is to express, and we're going to have a conversation tomorrow after yoga. So then he wakes me up and he goes, scoot over. He goes, we're having this conversation now. and because I was like, oh, we'll do this tomorrow. And he goes, it pisses me the fuck off because you constantly are looking for inspiration outside of you. When you are the inspiration, you inspire the uninspired, and it pisses me off because you don't even realize, you're not even aware of how much you inspire people. And he goes, when are you going to drink your own fucking Kool-Aid? And that statement right there landed so deep in me. I go, oh. And that's actually where a huge shift in my life, versus talking the talk, embodying what I'm saying, experiencing what I'm saying, and being the living example, walking the walk. And it shifted so much in my life. And I constantly will ask, I'll check back in. Am I drinking my fucking Kool-Aid? So
yeah, no, I think it's, obviously super vulnerable for you to share that, and really cool, because I think a lot of people that are in this space right now are wanting to, walk the walk, but they're having a hard time because of people pleasing, because of the good girl, good boy mentality, because of, unfortunately, all the shit we've gone through since 2020. The list goes on. I mean, obviously there was trauma in the world before 2020, but I think COVID was the catalyst for most people, which has also been, of course, I think a blessing in disguise, because it's woken so many people up at the same time. But of course, again, that's what you were saying with that dance of the light and the dark. A lot of people are experiencing that, and I even see breathwork sessions where they're like, well, I really want to, step into, my sovereignty and want this and that, but online, like, I can't express this because so-and-so, blah, blah, and I'm like, well, then you're not in your sovereignty. You're choosing to people please. You're choosing the program of what are they going to say? What are they going to care about? Like, you're not in your sovereignty. Once you decide it's your piece, it's what you're embodying, it's who you are, regardless of everything else going on, then you're stepping into your sovereignty. Then you're walking the walk and you're embodying it as what you're speaking to. And I'm curious for you, I know for a lot of my listeners, some are, have messaged me and said, like, they're newer to this awakening journey and their spirituality and everything. For you, like, when you, started to really embrace your gifts and started to really notice, that light and dark, and realize that you got to embody more and walk into it. What was that like, having to actually step into it and be like, okay, I have to walk the walk. I'm not just talking about this. I'm not just experiencing it. I'm not just doing practices. I'm actually embodying this now, because you spoke to the shifts that happen afterwards. Can you go back to that embodiment and then kind of break down a little bit of like what those shifts look like for you?
Yes. It was scary at first, because then I matter of fact, every yoga nidra journey, I'm like, it's a depiction of a story of my life. And so I'm like, okay, what am I ready to call forward now? And I literally say, okay, God, give me strength. Give me strength, because more muck is going to come up. And so once I acknowledge what really am I experiencing? It's liberating.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It
so well said.
it's so liberating because it does take courage. It does take courage because so many times we have this idea, this perceived idea that we have to, there's negative and positive feelings, and this is an idea. And really, that's the rainbow spectrums of life, of embracing everything, because even these perceived negative ideas, those are labels. And that's also, there's what I've recently kind of had this aha of shame. This was like a very recent, about a couple months ago, that shame is the silent killer of life. And shame
Mm,
is right or wrong, good or bad, too much, not enough, and broken. And how many times do we have this embedded? And then we start shaming shame, and then we're like, oh no, and then perpetuating the pattern versus, can we love? Are we willing to love? So it's such a liberating experience when you truly acknowledge and say, I'm willing to love you. So whenever, because I used to be the little girl, like I said, that would run from conflict. So that's a big one in my life that I get to face new layers of. And how can I be calm, as we were saying? Can I be calm in chaos? Can I be the eye of the storm? So I used to try to say, oh, yes, I can love this. No, first you acknowledge. So sometimes I go, I hate what I'm feeling, because I couldn't say hate. It was the bad word.
okay.
And we couldn't say hate. And so I said, no, I hate what I'm feeling. And sometimes I would go, I fucking hate what I'm feeling. Like, really
Right.
acknowledge. I'm like, no. And then all of a sudden I go, can you love what you're feeling? And I go, not yet.
Yeah. Not ready
That's okay.
yet. Yep.
And it's
Yep.
okay to not be okay, because we make up we have to be okay all the time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I go, okay, who in me can love what I'm feeling? And I like to use the word God because I had a lot of resistance with the word God.
Oh, yeah. That was me when I was a teenager. Uh-huh.
And when I got married, I omitted every word that said God in our vows and said universe, divine, angels, because I was the one who had God separate from me. And so when I started embracing, I go, oh, I was the one who had God separate. So then I love using the word God all the time. So I said, God in me can love what I'm feeling. And then I go, I'm willing to love what I'm feeling. And if I haven't got there yet, I go, God, legions upon legions of angels, depending where I am, help me love what I'm feeling.
Okay.
Because all it takes is one drop of love. And first we acknowledge what we're actually feeling versus trying to say, oh, yes, this is happening. We're here to acknowledge our inner child
Yeah,
and give our feelings a voice.
it's true. It's so true. No, I love that you shared that. And thank you for kind of breaking that down further and being also super, open about that. And like how also like, your yoga journeys, they're all within you. And I think that's kind of the coolest part, what I recognized anyways, with all the different people I've met over the last few years, and especially my podcast, is like everyone has a journey that they've been through, and now they want to share because they've come out on the other side, and they're like, okay, I want to empower others, I want to help heal others, I want them to experience this too. And I went through the dark, now I'm in the light mostly, and I'm dancing with the dark, and I'm getting to experience this, and I want other people to experience this too. And I agree with you. I do think more and more people are being more open and ready to go through this journey, obviously because of where we are in the world right now, in the consciousness shift. But it's just interesting when you speak to, like, even with your journeys, like calling forth, like, okay, I'm going to do this, but then also acknowledging, like, and what is going to come up now for me, and like, how am I going to move through this, and acknowledging also that, like you said, it's okay to not be okay, and also to acknowledge, like, I can say, like, I fucking hate this feeling, and it's okay, and you're still spiritual, and you're still aligned and everything. Like, it doesn't have to just be love and light all the time. You can be very much real about what you're feeling and that authentic self, but also then be aware of, like, okay, but I'm going to not play victim. I'm going to embody this. I'm going to embrace this move through this and then alchemize it and come out on the other side.
Yes, because it's the resistance that keeps it in place, and it's
Right.
the judgment. We're like, no, 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 I shouldn't be feeling this, and then you try to suppress it, and the more you try to suppress it, that's why I said the opposite of depression is expression,
Mhm.
and that's what I am truly feel, because I truly believe that we can end all depression if we allowed ourselves to be our authentic expression. No more holding back, because the reason why we're depressed is because we're not, if the moment something comes up, you can express something. That's the agreement my husband and I have, because we may trigger, because sometimes we get trigger the fuck out of each other. And it's through those moments, like the other day, he's like, see that picture right there? And I actually took a picture of it. I'm gonna post it, because everything was clouded and there's a speck of light through the clouds. He's like, that's us.
Oh, that's cute.
That's us. May not be rainbows, it can be clouds, but there's always light that pierces through. And so it's letting yourself, can you express what you're triggered about, versus holding it in, making a whole narrative about it that may not even be true.
Yeah,
in the
right.
first place.
Yeah, we love to create the stories that don't even, yeah, that don't serve, that aren't necessarily even the actual story. And yeah, it's true.
And making
Mhm.
it all up in our head along the way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so true. Yeah, no. And I think too of what you were saying was just like, the embodiment and being able to alchemize that. It's like, okay, you're willing to see it for what it is, you're willing to feel it, and then you're also willing to heal it. That's the other part of it, right? Like that was something like I realized, even when so long story short, like most of my community knows, but like I recently had my son, in September, and I had my first home birth. And I had my first daughter via a C-section after wanting to have a natural birth. And, basically after healing so much of that trauma and going through birth processing and all those different, things that I went through, I feel like it was kind of divine, because it came up in a conversation my husband and I were having. And when I first was talking about, before I had my son Abel, I was talking to him, and I was kind of like blaming like my family and my friends and all these things. And I was like, and then I was like, wait, I need to correct myself. I was like, that's playing like victim, and that's not where I'm at. I was like, I chose to give my power away. I chose to listen to the negative, the fear, the this, the that. And that's where I wound up. And I was like, this time around, I'm not sharing with people, because I'm just literally protecting my peace. And I realized the difference. And it's not about judgment. It's just showing up for how I need to show up and embody and be able to step into the space. And then after it all happens, then be able to share, and that's okay, but I had to really realize in that moment that real shift of like what I was going through, and so I think you're right in that honoring, right? It's like being conscious enough to recognize when you're going back to that old pattern and moving yourself out. It's not about just being in the love and light and being like, okay, I'm just going to be here and everything's great. And, because then you're just suppressing really things that are going on, and you're just making it quote unquote spiritual. Like I've seen so many spiritual like leaders do that. And it's like, even I have to check myself and be like, okay, am I dancing with this? Am I embodying this? Like, how do I move through this instead of getting stuck in it too, And so it really is like a dance of handling how that goes. And I love that your husband is so like real about like, hey,
Yes. Oh yes. I'm very, very grateful, because we have yet to launch our course, and it will happen. And I was writing one time through our own experiences, significant reflection. And when I was writing significant, because I made up English was not, and spelling was not my strong suit. And I am a wordsmith. So I see words for what they are.
Their
and
vibration.
I go, yes. And I go, is that really how you spell significant? Sign if I can't.
Oh, wow.
Sign if I can't. You are my sign when I can't see. I was like, oh, wow.
that emoji, the mind blown. I just had that moment.
I did too in that moment. I would go, is that really how you spell it? I kept questioning myself. I'm like, sign if I can't. what?
Yeah, how you look at words is like how I see colors and their like vibration when I look at a color. It's like the same idea, but that's really freaking cool.
I love that. I love that. And I also will create acronyms like play.
Uh-huh.
Powerful love aligns you. So
Yeah.
I remind myself when I stay in my play, I manifest my miracles because our
Hmm.
love is powerful. Really, we're here for love and thriving.
Yeah.
And I've also had a recent, several months ago, a lot has happened in my of turning 40. It has been my pivot year of no more waiting for things to happen. I'm giving me my dreams now. And
Oh,
that's when I
beautiful.
did my
Okay.
song. That's when I did my family retreat. Now I have my women's retreat coming. That's when I have chosen to be in my big play in a new way. And it took some courage. It did take some courage to be in that. And so yeah, being um when we're in our play, that's where we're in our child state of our enthusiasm, of our natural state of being. And that's where we're in the most powerful love is of a child.
Yeah, it's so true. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. And, I think it's cool too that you say, that vulnerability and like kind of each time you've chosen to step into kind of a new level and a new idea and everything that's birthing essentially through you. It's like there is that vulnerability, there is that courage that has to happen. I think it's important to share that because no matter like where you are in your journey, like there's always going to be that. Like if you sit there and just wait to see what happens, like you said, like you're done waiting. Like it's like you just wait to see what happens, or you just sit there like, okay, you got the fear holds you back, and you just are like, well, I'll just stay here. It's like, no, nothing's ever going to shift. It's like you're not going to jump in and do something ready. It's just not the way life works. So it's like you got to jump in and do it, and then hope that something's going to play out from it. And if it doesn't, at least hopefully you learn something from it and you move forward into something else. And I think that's like what's really important, especially in this time, is consciousness journey, is like being open and having that faith and realizing that people are doing this every day and stepping into new roles, into truly maybe their soul led purpose that they weren't aware was their purpose, and leaving jobs that they didn't never thought they'd leave, or leaving a relationship they never thought they'd leave, or whatever it may be, or embracing a relationship they never thought they'd embrace, or just these different consciousness shifts that are showing us like it's not about the people pleasing program. It's not about being, like you said, someone behind a mask. It's about being your truly authentic self, and expressing that and being, authentically who you are, which very much aligns with me, being a celebrity stylist and fashion expert for so many years. I've always said confidence is your best accessory. And then when I went through my postpartum depression and, went through all of my changes, I added to that authenticity is your superpower, because I realized for me that I had really like lost that about myself. And it was like, oh, confidence isn't enough to get me through this. Confidence is enough to keep moving me through this. Authenticity is what's going to alchemize it, what's going to embody it, and going to let you step into the superpower of you.
Yes. And when I stopped shaming my shame or shaming the things I was judged for, making them wrong, like slow, I've
Yeah.
embraced that as my superpower. I was called slow. I was labeled slow. So I tried to be faster and faster, and I judged me for it. And I beat myself up. I mean, if you could have saw my inner self, I'd be like this.
I was gonna say, and hence you being a busy bee, because it's like,
Yes.
oh, I have to keep doing because I was called slow, so I have to. That just came
Oh.
for me. Yeah, that just came.
You. Ooh,
Yeah.
oh, I'm on a just for I like to pause and marinate when I land in truth. So just for 1 second. Ah. And I imagine that resonates for anyone else who's watching too, of
Yeah, I just heard
because
that.
yes, when we slow down, because that's what I say with my journeys. That's what I'm offering now people the gift is slowing down and speed up,
Yeah,
quantum speed of love.
beautiful.
Because we think that we have to do. And really, we are in a time where, and this is how I've been integrating, like when I work with my clients, is leading with your being and letting the
Mm,
doing support your being versus do and get stuck in the stinking thinking and the inner criticism and all this other stuff
yeah.
and perfection and this idea of
And basically
outside of
spiral.
yourself. Yes, yes. So yeah, I had that idea like, and that was another aha moment of I kept trying to fit in because I was so different when I was raised. My parents
Mm,
were ahead of their time, so I made up I didn't fit in. And
okay.
it's so painful because I felt I didn't belong here that I would have thoughts or even attempts to take my life because
I
it was
understand that.
so
I had that too. I get it.
painful. And one of my aha moments is no, you belong here. You're not meant to fit in. We aren't here to fit into the idea that we're outside of our world. We remember we belong and we are the way. We pave the way by simply being our authentic self.
Yeah. Hmm. It's so true. Yeah, so powerfully said. And I'm glad that I literally heard that as you were like talking about the busy bee. And I was like, oh, the being, the doing.
Yes, so it
There you
played a
go.
role. It played a role. And I've recently thanked, instead of shaming the illusion or ego, I'll say thank you for playing the role you have for reminding me of who I am.
Hmm. Yeah, that's powerful. I think that's you know, a good pearl of wisdom for those that are listening or watching. Like when you are going, you know, through this journey and you start to want to shame yourself and you want to start to essentially say, oh, that's all ego, that's this, that's that. And yeah, sure, there are parts of the ego and everything, but like you said, not shaming it and actually thanking it. And I think that also goes back to the forgiveness work, right? Like I did so much forgiveness work in 2019 and 2020. And that was a huge shift for me. And I didn't realize like how powerful that was until like I actually did it and embodied it. And it's not for anyone else. It's for you. It's for you to be able to
Mm,
move through. It's for you to be able to alchemize and truly continue forward. And it doesn't matter what's going on outside of that. That's for others to figure out. It's you did the work for you and you've
yeah.
forgiven and it's about you. And I think that's where like a lot of people think about like that forgiving is for someone else. And again, this goes back to the
Mm.
people pleasing program, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, I forgive. And then, okay, now everything's cool again. It's like, no, it's not about that on a deeper level, on that embodiment, on that alchemizing. It's you
Mm.
forgiving for you so you can move forward and be in that peace and be in that sovereignty. So yeah,
Yes.
I love what you shared about that.
And also when we are in resentment, we're sending our energy away. And when we
Mhm.
forgive, we're giving back for ourselves.
So true.
And
What is
that's
the word? I'm curious. What is the word resentment breakdown for you?
well resent I just see it as resend. You're resending your energy. You're resending.
Yeah, that makes
It,
sense.
it's being yeah, it's instead of giving back, you're sending it away.
Hmm.
You're resenting your energy.
Yeah, that's
And,
powerful. Hmm.
and so forgiveness is a huge, powerful tool. Huge, powerful tool. It
Hmm.
has restored my connection with my mother. And honestly, I didn't even know I had unconscious resentment. I didn't even know I had it
Mm,
because I had those triggers that I kept pushing down, and good girl, I'd be like, and I was shamed for being messy.
yeah,
I was shamed for being messy, and I was praised for holding back my expression and not speaking my truth.
yeah. I think that's a lot of us.
And now I go, thank you, mom, for playing the role you have in my life. And she'll say, thank you for being you. You have been a great teacher in my life.
That's
And
cool.
it took me many years
Yeah.
because I was the little girl. It actually, my husband helped me move through that because that was my MO, was to run. So again, one of my strengths is to stay. So when I feel I'm having that fight or flight come up of the survival,
Yeah.
that's where I go. First, I acknowledge what I'm feeling and I say, God, legions upon legions of angels, help me stay love. help me stay love. I can't stay love right now, and help me stay love. Because it's when I am in my stay, can move mountains.
Yeah.
That's how powerful our stay is.
Mm-hmm.
And
So true.
one drop of love can part the seas. It dissolves. I got real clear. I was actually through my littlest one, who's 5. She was 3 at the time. I have these whole chakra creations, and I designed these little third eye beanies. And she points to my third eye, and she goes, "Mommy, your third eye right here." She points to her third eye, "Mommy, third eye right here." And right when she said that, I felt so much God bumps, truth bumps, however people resonate, and a rush of energy just washed through my body, where my whole body just like vibrates. And then I saw a rainbow bridge of connection. And I said, here I've been trying to see through my third eye. And actually, that's when I activated my intuition to a deeper level, because to see through our third eye is to see through the lens of love.
Mm-hmm.
The
Wow. Yeah.
eyes of God.
Yeah.
That's how we tap in. If we have any type of judgment, or it simply clouds our vision.
So true.
And like you were saying with the light, just the other day I did a beautiful with one of my sisters of a sacred womb embodiment journey.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, I think it was the end or beginning, we all lit candles. And my flame kept going out, and I was like, "Oh no, this is a representation." And that was the old narrative of this blame coming in. And then I heard very clearly, sometimes the flame requires to go out so you can be in the darkness and shine even brighter. And I go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Okay.
We have to shine our light so bright all the time.
Right.
We are the light. And we can embrace the darkness so we can go in the depths and then shine even brighter and illuminate the darkness.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I love that. So, you've been through quite a journey.
Yes.
And you're now doing retreats and doing these different, yoga journeys to help people essentially be able to alchemize what they're going through. If someone's listening right now or watching and they're kind of just starting in their journey, what would be the advice or just kind of, a share that you would give them?
Yes. First of all, give yourself grace. Trust the process. Remember, there is no right or wrong path. It's your choice. We have the power to choose, and you can use your voice to voice your choice. And the most, be loving and honor, really acknowledge. I got that through my own child. My children love to be acknowledged. They don't require the praise. That's the same with our inner child. And when we acknowledge our inner child, we allow, because emotion is energy in motion. And so we allow the energy to be in motion. And so if it is a scream, scream. Honor. I tell my children, it's okay if you're angry. Now, it's not okay if you're going to be violent towards your sister and express it. And there are healthier ways. So stop shaming your feelings and embrace all the spectrums of life. And if you push your hands like this, you're resisting against resistance. And the moment you let go, there's no more resistance. So most of the time we're resisting against resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the most important thing that I have done with me.
Yeah, I love that. It's true. Because it's what we resist persists. It's just the way it goes. Yes.
And sometimes we can get in our head. So a lot of some of the tools, like with sacred language and for both body and spoken, like one time I was getting a headache and I was like, okay, so this is pressure. And I was like analyzing the message. And my husband goes, can't you just be in your experience of and let this pass through versus trying to figure it out? And I go, oh, Because head wants to figure things out, head rationalizes, tells stories, justifies, and our heart remembers. So if you're ever feeling overwhelmed or have anxiety or worry, check back in, and you may be in your head.
Yeah, true.
Take a pause and take a deep breath in. And give yourself opportunities to slow down as much as you can.
Yeah, such good advice. Well, Janaki, thank you so much for sharing your journey and everything about you. Tell us where we can find you and follow you. And if people do want to check out your treats and things you're doing, go ahead and tell us, and everything will be in the show notes.
Okay, awesome. So I am failing forward with technology, and I've called forward support with that. So I let my website dissolve in 2020 because that's what I require to do, be the rise of the Phoenix. So now have my website. It will be back up very soon, and it's bhaktilight.com. It's BHAKTILIGHT.com. And so I'm more familiar with Facebook. I'm willing to go into Instagram, and in different ways where I show up. And I always, email is always great too. I tell people, text me if you email me, because that's something. So yes, Facebook is more my platform that I.
And what is the page on Facebook, or what is the way to contact
I have
you?
it under Janaki, so it's my name, Janaki, and then Mayhill. I do have my pages page, however that is, and I have a group that I started a year ago because I got it through my journaling, called Inspire Your Fire. I have a program that I am designing right now. It's a deprogram to reprogram.
Very cool.
And it's Inspire Your Fire for your aligned soul design.
Beautiful. Love that. Fire. Well, thank you so much for being here. As I said, everything will be in the show notes. Guys, whether you're in the beginning of your awakening journey or you're deep in it, I hope this awakened something in you or sparked something in you, and know what a light you are. Janaki and I both spoke to so many different amazing modalities and different ways that you can be supported and things you can do for yourself. I also want to thank my sponsor, Soak, who is all about soaking in sound frequencies, another incredible healing modality. If you guys want to check out Soak on the app or website, go to SOAK.com, or go to just SOAK on your phone and download the app. You can use code ALI70, capital ALI 70, for 70% off your first month, and check out my breathwork offerings that are on there. And thank you all for all the amazing reviews and just all the gratitude I have for this show and sharing. And thank you, Janaki, for being here and sharing your journey. Love, light, and blessings, everyone. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.